Parm is a restaurant that comes from chefs Mario Carbone and Rich Torrisi, who are the pair behind the massively popular Carbone. Parm, on the other hand, is more casual and serves classic Italian-American staples, but a number of their courses are similar to what's offered at Carbone, like their spicy rigatoni vodka pasta. To satisfy my curiosity, I had to find out if Parm could compare to its fine dining sibling. Beautiful spring day today here in New York City. Right now I'm at Central Park, but I'd like to talk about where I went to for lunch today. It's a restaurant that's always intrigued me. I am talking about Parm, and the reason why Parm sort of interests me is that it comes from the Major Food Group. This is the same restaurant group that's given the city places like Carbone, Torrisi, and The Grill. I love all of those restaurants. In fact, The Grill proved to be one of the best meals I had last year. When I think of Major Food Group restaurants, I think of quality, but unfortunately, I also think of high price tags, which makes Parm sort of an outlier because it's definitely not a costly restaurant. In fact, the place has a 3-course lunch menu for only $25. Another factor that's really gotten me interested in Parm is that it's a sort of precursor to Carbone, and in fact, Parm has versions of a lot of the most popular dishes on Carbone's menu. So that got me curious. Is Parm a more affordable and more casual version of Carbone? To answer that question, I went to Parm not once, but twice. A couple of days ago, I went to their original location in Nolita, and today I went to the Upper West Side location. So with that being said, this was my first lunch at Parm, but first I would like to thank today's sponsor, Factor. Factor is a meal delivery service that brings fresh, tasty, chef-crafted, and never-frozen meals straight to my door. Now, you know that I love dining out at restaurants, but I can't do that for every meal. In fact, I work mostly from home, and because of this, I want something that's quick and easy to make that I don't have to stress about, and something that preferably tastes great. Factor checks all the boxes for me. When I'm hungry, I simply take one of the meals out of my refrigerator, poke a few holes in it, and then pop it in the microwave. Just minutes later, I'll have a fresh, tasty Factor meal that's ready to eat. One thing that I really appreciate about Factor is their variety. There's 100+ rotating weekly options that range from salads, meals, shakes, and more, which are all easy to prep and enjoy. Right now, you can get 50% off your first Factor box, which even includes free daily greens. It's a drink you take daily that's made with real vegetables and nutrients that you might be missing from your diet. To sum it up, I use Factor, it really works for me, and I think it will work for you too. Go to factor75.com right now or click on the link in the description and use code JamesAFDG to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free daily greens. That's code JamesAFDG at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free daily greens. So thank you, Factor, for sponsoring this video, and now onwards to lunch. The original Parm is located in the Nolita neighborhood of New York City. It opened in 2011 and is the product of chefs Mario Carbone and Rich Torrisi, along with restaurateur Jeff Zelaznik. Parm arrived on the heels of the success of Torrisi and Carbone's original restaurant, Torrisi Italian Specialties, which was once located right next door to Parm. While the duo's first restaurant began life as a casual sandwich shop, it later transitioned to a fine dining establishment. Parm, in essence, was sort of meant to serve as a place that could handle the sandwich and lunch operations of Torrisi Italian Specialties, but it developed its own character as well. This in turn led to the opening of subsequent locations throughout NYC, but other cities as well, like Boston and Vegas. For my first visit, however, I wanted to see where it all began, so arrived at the original Mulberry Street location at about 1:25 p.m. on a Monday afternoon. I took a seat at the bar, which was empty when I arrived, but that would soon change. There were also a handful of tables in back. Now, I didn't have a reservation because the original Parm doesn't take reservations, which is likely due to its small size. Overall, I liked the sort of retro look of the restaurant, and I appreciated the fact that they had Apollo 13 playing at the bar, which is one of my favorite Tom Hanks movies. After settling in, I began exploring the menu. Parm serves classic Italian-American comfort food. There's a decent pasta selection, along with platters featuring dishes like a chicken parm. Sandwiches play a big role on the restaurant's menu as well, and I definitely wanted to try one, but I saved that for my second visit. What really caught my eye that day was their 3-course $25 lunch special. Considering I just paid my taxes that week, my wallet was feeling the pain, so that special sounded perfect. In terms of beverages, Parm offers a variety of wine by the glass, cocktails, and beer. I decided to go with the Talia Al Dente Pilsner, but unfortunately the restaurant was out of it. As a substitute, I got a bottle of Peroni, which obviously wasn't the same, but it still hit the spot. First up in terms of food was my appetizer, the pizza knots, which were tossed in garlic butter, topped with a pizza spice, and paired with tomato sauce. Now, since I ordered from the lunch special menu, the number of knots were reduced compared to if I selected the course a la carte. Still, I was eager to give that one a go, and I wasn't disappointed. Those knots were delicious and definitely above average compared to what you would find at your typical pizzeria. For me, it was their texture that really set them apart. Oftentimes when I have pizza knots, they just feel a bit too gummy. Parm's example had a nice textural contrast of a somewhat crisp exterior and a fluffy interior, combined with the thick and zesty sauce that proved to be a delightful start to my lunch. Next up was the dish I was most eager to try, since it's basically a version of Carbone's most famous offering, their spicy rigatoni vodka pasta. Although, at Parm, the dish does have a different name, but nevertheless, they seemed remarkably similar, and I wanted to find out just how similar they were. Visually, both courses looked quite alike, except for Carbone's fancier looking plate. Price-wise, however, there's a big difference. Had I ordered Parm's pasta a la carte, it would have set me back $18. Carbone's offering, on the other hand, currently goes for $34. However, at the end of the day, it comes down to flavor, and I definitely enjoyed Parm's offering. First off, the pasta was cooked just right, but the highlight of the course was the sauce. It certainly had some spice to it, but it was nothing too dramatic. Rather, it provided a pleasant tingle. I was also given some condiments, including grated Parm, which, considering the name of the restaurant, how could I not have added it? Overall, that was a very enjoyable pasta dish, but is it the same as Carbone's offering? I think that it's very close to it, although it has been a while since I've had the spicy rigatoni vodka from Carbone, but I do think Carbone's dish was just a touch better. I thought Parm's offering was just a little too saucy, while Carbone's dish proved to be slightly more refined. However, I believe aesthetics like the fancier atmosphere of Carbone and the nicer plate factor into one's perception of the food. Subconsciously, those factors may have indeed influenced my decision about the two pastas. Regardless, I felt that both of those courses were incredibly similar. They're both good dishes, and my lunch at Parm so far was shaping up to be a good one. After finishing, it was time for dessert. I got a pair of cannolis, and just like my appetizer, the course was reduced in portion size a bit for the lunch special menu, but I thought that 2 cannolis were fair. Now that was a solid cannoli. The flavor was nice, and it really had everything you could want from a cannoli. Although, on the menu, it does promise that it will be the best cannoli that you've ever had, and for me, it was not, but it was still very good. My tiny issue was that the shell was a bit harder than it should have been, but nevertheless, I still enjoyed it. Overall, that was a nice lunch. I got a decent amount of food, and I thought Parm provided good value. It did take a while for me to get my bill, however. By 2, the place was packed, and it didn't seem like there were enough people working. Eventually, I paid, and with my 20% tip, my lunch set me back a bit over $41. So that was a good first lunch. I enjoyed all the food I had. Now, I can't say any of those courses would be a reason to make a special trip for Parm, but they did offer a good value for sure. I definitely enjoyed my pasta course. Now, it wasn't quite as good as Carbone's, but it was a hell of a lot cheaper, and I was still pretty satisfied. Overall, I had a nice first experience at Parm. It was good enough to make me want to go to the restaurant again. So with that being said, this was my experience today at Parm's Upper West Side location. Out of the other two New York City Parm locations, I chose the Upper West Side spot because it was more convenient for me and because of the establishment's proximity to Central Park. After my lunch, I wanted to see the park's variety of flowering trees that were in bloom, and they were amazing. First, however, I had to eat. Unlike the Nolita location, the Upper West Side spot takes reservations, and I got one for 12, but I probably didn't need it. Upon checking in, I discovered that the restaurant was even larger than it appeared from the outside. It was a nice looking place and has a more modern feel to it than the original spot. Once I was settled, I began to check out the menu. For the most part, the Upper West Side's offerings are nearly identical to the menu from the original restaurant, except for a couple of different courses, like the Greek farro salad, which doesn't seem to be offered at the Nolita spot. The Upper West Side restaurant also has the same $25 lunch special, but I was going to be ordering a la carte for that visit. First up was my beverage. I got an Aperol Spritz. The cocktail contained Aperol, Prosecco, and club soda. It hit the spot. The drink was well made and nicely balanced. It's basically an Italian summer in cocktail form, and it suited me nicely for that lunch. My first course, which was presented to me very quickly, was the signature Caesar salad. The dish contained baby gem lettuce, Caesar dressing, garlic butter croutons, and Parmesan cheese. It seemed like a nice salad, which looked very similar to the one offered at Carbone called the Caesar alla Zizi, but I've yet to try that one, so I can't speak to it very much. I found Parm Caesar to be pretty good. The greens were nice and fresh, I liked the umami coming from the parm, and the dressing had good flavor, but I didn't think that there was enough dressing. Frankly, that salad tasted a little too healthy for me. Although those croutons were fantastic, and the highlight of the dish, they were buttery and texturally on point. Before I was able to finish my salad, I was presented with my main course. Considering that that was a hot sandwich, I set my salad to the side for the moment. The creation was the house roast beef sandwich on a hero roll. It contained thinly sliced homemade roast beef, fresh mozzarella, mayo and hot peppers on toasted sesame seed covered garlic bread. To put it simply, that sandwich was fantastic. It was the best thing I had at Parm across my 2 visits. First off, that bread was spot on. I think it was what really made the sandwich. It was nicely toasted, texturally perfect, and I loved the flavor coming from the sesame seeds. Regarding the beef, it was nice and tender, but really all of the elements in that creation did their job, equating to a nicely balanced and delicious dish that I loved. There was a bit of spice from the peppers, some richness from the cheese, and a satisfying crunch from the bread. Overall, I was very happy. After finishing both my sandwich and salad, it was time for dessert. Besides cannolis, Parm offers ice cream cake. When I think of ice cream cake, Baskin-Robbins is the first thing that comes to mind. Frankly, I don't see them offered very much at restaurants. I decided to go with the s'more slice, which contained graham cracker, chocolate hazelnut, and a toasted marshmallow. Without a doubt, that was an impressive looking slice. It even garnered the attention of the couple seated next to me who looked on with envy. I thought that it was a pretty good dessert, but nothing special. While it looked impressive, I didn't think that the flavors were strong enough. It frankly needed a bit more pop. To me, even the chocolate ice cream didn't taste that much different from the vanilla ice cream. Still, it wasn't a bad dish, but I felt that it could have been better. After finishing, it was time for the bill, which totaled to $70.77, but with my tip, I spent almost $84. That was a satisfying meal indeed. Once again, that was another satisfying meal from Parm. I really enjoyed that. Just like my first time, I think the restaurant offers good food, but not necessarily food that would necessitate going out of your way to visit Parm, except for their sandwiches. That roast beef sandwich that I had today was excellent. I loved it. Because of how good that sandwich was, I would definitely recommend Parm for their sandwiches. Although I definitely think the restaurant offers good value all around. Sometimes you don't need to have the most new or unique dish, but rather something familiar and comforting, and that's what I think Parm offers. To sum it up, I had 2 very enjoyable experiences at Parm. In a city that's filled with very costly Italian restaurants, it's nice to have a place like Parm. Overall, I think Parm's a pretty good place. It's not perfect, but they do serve one hell of a sandwich, and that is something that I will definitely be returning for.